to talk all the time about government. What should government's role be, and should governments have the right to do this, or should government? But none of them ever. You'll never, ever see, which I've been looking for forever and hoping that there'll be somebody, anybody at all, that would even define the terms. Define the terms to people. If you're going to discuss a topic as important as central planners that dictate and control the lives of every human being that lives in a certain geographical landmass, before you start discussing something as vitally important as that, I find it's kind of disturbing that nobody ever, none of these folks in academia, the media, the politicians, they never, ever want to define the terms first. Why? Because they rely on propaganda, they rely on misinformation, they rely on political doublespeak. And they do that thing, like I said, where they're arguing back and forth, but it's all in a predefined sphere of a certain acceptable limit to the kind of debate that can truly happen. But if you step back a little bit further, if you jump out of that little box and you ask yourself, well, okay, first of all, we're going to talk about government. Well, what is government? Right? I mean, what is government? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's easy if you want. That's the thing, too. We live in a day, I remember growing up in school, which I never could stand, but there were certain projects or, things that we had to hand in. It required that, you might need a dictionary or an encyclopedia, which back in the day, you had the Encyclopedia Britannica, I think was the most popular series. But these things were expensive. These were really, books like this thick, I believe, and maybe only covered A and B, and, you had to have the whole series, right? Which, back then, I remember, I think it was hundreds of dollars, and I mean, when I was growing up, a few $100 was a buttload of money for people that, especially, I come from poor family background, so not a lot of my family had that kind of money, but for the people to truly understand terms, I mean, dictionary and the encyclopedia were foundational. Otherwise, you could just make up whatever you wanted, right? Now, today, we are lucky that we live in a day and age where we have the internet. We have instant access to anybody for literally it costs next to nothing almost, because if you're already connected to the internet, you're already paying for the service. The few kilobytes or even a megabyte that it would take to do a real quick search for online dictionary, because it's all text. There's no video. You're not going to watch a video or even an audio file. It's just text that will explain to you real quick what is government. Now, I'm not going to go into it. I was going to actually, go in and do the whole, well, this is how it's defined, but I want the people that are going to watch this video, I want you to actually take it upon yourself. Because the one thing I can't stand is people that subjugate themselves to the opinions or the whims of others. Don't take my word for it. Everything that I say, or anyone says to you, you need to put that effort into figuring out, well, who's telling the truth and who's lying to me. Because if you just arbitrarily listen to whatever people like myself or anyone tells you, well, it just means you're easily manipulated. But if you want to get to the root of everything, you have to take that little bit of effort, the initiative on yourself, and figure out, is this person telling me the truth or not? So I'll leave you looking up. There's Webster's Dictionary. There's the New Dictionary. There's like the Free Dictionary, which is a much newer reiteration of a lot of the old ones. And I do recognize there's actually been a little bit of changes in that. But there's the Oxford Dictionary. There's all kinds of online dictionaries that you can refer to for the meaning of the word government, okay? But one thing that you will see when you do, the underlying common word, the common premise you will see is the right to rule, right? And you'll see that. You'll realize it. The right to rule. Now, that once you get to that point where you realize that, okay, government is the right to rule over in a certain geographical landmass, and the people that live in that certain geographical landmass. Now, we all, because we've been taught this stuff through school, through our parents. A lot of people that didn't know better or never questioned authority at any point in time. So we've all been told that government is legitimate, and that's it's just part of what it is. If you're born in this country, well, that's just what it means to live in this country. You have to go by, the edicts or the opinions or the whims of the politicians, because if you're born in this country, well, that's how it works. That's how democracy works. But I mean, all of this shit is just completely baseless. Well, they're lies, and they're all based on impossibilities. And I can prove that, which I want to preface soon, before I even start into this whole thing. I want to preface right away is Larken Rose. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him. He's a self-ascribed anarchist, and one of the people that, when I started to try to learn and understand some of the aspects of what is the role of government, what's the whole, Larken Rose was one of the people that I ended up seeing his name come up time after time again. So I wanted to know, who is this guy? So of course I spent a lot of time, actually a few years, trying to figure out, and I watched all of his videos, I've read his books, and you know what, this is someone that actually has, I think, played a crucial role in figuring out how we can undercut these false premises and ideologies that people have put forth. And you know what, he's got it to the point where within just a few questions, now I kind of did a little reiteration myself, might have reworded a little bit, but it's still based on exactly the same thing that he ascribes in most of his videos, or what he discusses in his book. What it comes down to is, okay, how does government gain its legitimacy, right? And I mean, the beautiful thing of it is, once you've got all the philosophical principles understood, and you've defined the terms, and you try to weed out most of the mysticism, we are now at a point where you can actually ask someone. I just got 4, and maybe they're not perfected. I'm waiting for someone. Actually, most people, I've been trying to get people to answer these 4 questions, and for some reason, which I don't even think it's a surprise or quite as a shock as you would think it would be, but they avoid it like the plague. I've actually found it quite disturbing that I post this constantly. I mean, on the mainstream media, Facebook pages, I comment all over in different places. I've tried so many different ways. There's even a site called Globe Debate. The Globe Mail in Canada has created a Facebook page all about debate. And I was like, oh, well, this is perfect. So I posted once, it was back on the 23rd, and then the other day I reposted again, asking someone in this Globe Debate, which so far I think it's almost 1,000 people that are on there now. Not one has taken up the challenge to answer these 4 questions, which tells me that not only was Larken Rose, or not only people like themselves onto something, and Molyneux, Stefan Molyneux is another person that understands this stuff through and through, but they've actually created a scenario where no statists, no collectivists, there's nothing they can do. They've painted themselves in the corner with all the rhetoric and creating all this statist ideology. Now they've painted themselves into the corner where if you use these 4 questions, no matter what they do, no matter how much they scramble, no matter how much they want to try to, use their little fork-tongued political doublespeak, they're fucked. They can't even answer 4 questions that, in reality, if you ask a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old little kid, they can answer it with ease. But full-grown adults from academia maybe have 2 or 3 diplomas lining the wall behind them. They're scared to death to even try to answer them. And that tells you right there is because, well, that's their whole crutch relies on people's belief, the illusion of legitimate authority. But with just 4 questions, just 4 very simple, easy to understand questions. You can knock them out of the park. You can knock them down like dominoes, and they won't know what to do. They'll scramble. You know, they'll try everything in their power. They'll get pissed off. They'll insult you. They'll, whatever. But once you got them, it's like, and I'm at this point now because these people like to manipulate and fuck with people all the time. Well, listen, here. Truth, principles, and honest philosophy has given people like myself the power that you can do whatever you want. And I'm just a lowly nobody. I don't have an army. I don't have a police force. I have nobody to back me up. But I have a mind, and I have vocal cords, and I will call you out on your shit anytime I get the chance. And I want all of the statists to understand that I will, because whether you want to say it's because of my father and who he was, or just my personality traits or my Irish heritage, I don't know what it is, but I don't fear no man or woman. I'll challenge anybody anytime, and if my challenging people causes me to be in the sights of the vicious and vile and corrupt people on this planet, bring it on, fuckers. I don't care. We're all here one time anyways. So whatever you can do to me, it doesn't matter. And the beautiful thing too about the internet is making these videos, posting on Facebook, it's not going away. It's never going away. Once people learn these things, it's there. Sorry. But anyways, let's get back to these 4 questions here. What are the 4 questions? Well, the first one, and I actually recommend anyone that listens to this video, try this on someone. Because you'll watch their heads almost kind of want to explode the minute you start it, because their belief system is so entrenched in this false ideology that once you introduce anything that has logic or facts involved, you'll see their heads almost look like it's going to explode. It's pulsating. It's like, oh shit, how do I handle this? And this is the key to our power. So the first question I always like to start with is, do I have the right to force you to comply with my demand or to take your money without my permission? Which, I mean, other than a psychopath or, complete moron, of course everyone has to admit, well, no, of course you don't have the right to force others to comply with your demands or for you to go steal their money. Of course you don't. Those are both immoral and illegal, right? Well, okay. So then the next one would be, do I have the right to ask someone else to use force against you in order to make you comply with my demands or to take your money without permission? Well, no. Once again, how else are they going to answer it? Of course I don't have the right to ask someone else to go, hey, go steal that person's money, tell them I told you to do it, so that they'll know right away that, well, Bennett told them to do it, so, well, you have to do it, right? They'd say, what are you, fucking insane? You don't have a right to take my shit or force me to do anything that you want me to do. No. Third question. Do I have the right to ask a group of people to use force against you in order to make you comply with my demands or to take your money without permission? Well, once again, whether I ask one person or a whole group, no matter how large or small, even if I ask a whole group to ask you to, force you to comply with my demands or to take from you without your permission, of course, even they don't have the right. How can I give other people a right to do something that I don't have the right to do? I can't, right? So which leads to the last question. Well then, where do politicians and lawmakers draw their power from? Where do they get the legitimacy to do all the things that we know I can't do, you can't do, no one else can do, but politicians somehow have the power, the legitimate right to do them? Well, how do they get that? Well, the politicians and the central planners in this country would tell you, well, it's because you vote, right? So if I don't have the right to ask verbally someone to do these things on my behalf, which are immoral acts, does it change by writing their name on a piece of paper? Well, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Because verbal speech or written speech is the exact same thing. I'm asking you, the only thing is I'm doing it verbally or I'm doing it with a pen or pencil. So it's the exact same thing. Whether so once again, you get to the point where in 4 questions, you can show people 100% factually that actually there's no such thing as legitimate government. Because if I don't have the right to force or compel people to obey my edicts and my demands, or if I don't have the right to force people to pay for something that I want or services that I feel that I am entitled, well, then how do I give that power to a politician? If I don't have that right, well, I can't give a right to a politician if I don't have the right myself. It's completely fictional. If I don't have a ball, well, I can't give a ball to a basketball player, right? And if I don't have the right to force my ideas or my ideology or my preferences or my opinions on someone, well, I don't have the right to give someone else, just because they wear a suit and call themselves a politician, I don't have the right to give them that power either. So then how does it come to fruition? Well, you know, it's all about mysticism. Same with all religions and all ideologies and all cults of the past that relied on forced subjugation or collectivism. It's the belief. It relies on people's belief in the legitimacy of the system. You know, when the kings or the pharaohs said that, you know, whether it was Zeus gave them power or the sun god Ra that gave the pharaoh the power to control over his people, it was all fake. It was based on mysticism. It was based on something that any human being with any kind of critical mind could point out really quickly that, well, that's complete fucking bullshit. You can't gain power from someone if they don't have the power to start with. So, to me, that's foundational, and this is the most important thing. As much as I do, and I love, you know, speaking out about all the injustices and all the crazy shit and oppressions and wars and, you know, central bank bullshit and debts and deficits and all the countless rules and laws and these are all, you know, particular subjects or topics that I do speak about. But when you step back to it all, they all rely on that same foundational premise that somehow human beings, like the voters, somehow we have this magical capacity, or that's what we're taught in school, or by our teachers that were taught the exact same shit, or by our parents that were taught the exact same shit. These are all people that were taught the same shit, so they don't know any better. But for us to actually continue in 2015, I mean, this is 2015, for us to continue this subjugating ourselves and forcing each other to believe in these completely mystical, fictional concepts, well, it's at the very root. It's the very cause of what is wrong with this world today. It's the fact that people think that they should subject themselves or sacrifice themselves for some arbitrary central power. That is I think, foundationally and fundamentally the number one problem in the entire world today. If we can break through most people's belief in this fictional entity we call government, if we can break people out of that cycle of insanity and where they subjugate themselves to this higher power, the central collective, because they believe it's the right thing to do, if we can break people out of that mindset, well, humanity will be well on our way into experiencing and taking that next great step for humanity and experiencing what real liberty, what real prosperity, what real freedom represents. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I have been doing. It's foundational to everything that I talk about. Even when I get into specific subjects, at the core of my brain, the most important thing is to break people free from this cycle of insanity of believing in forced collectivism or forced subjugation or central authority. If we can break people from that mindset, that is all that's needed for humans to flourish and be free and to not have to feel they have to sacrifice themselves in this world, and they can have self-esteem and self-respect and we can finally put this antiquated, age-old concept of forced subjugation. We can finally break humans free from that. And I think that's an even greater accomplishment than traveling in space or some of the many technological advances we've made. If we can do this, then humanity, the sky's the limit at that point, folks. This is Canadian Libertarian, and you know I love liberty.